Morning, everyone. Today is one of those days where it gets to the end of that worship time and music, and I just wish there was some signal I could give Brian, which is like, keep going. It's a lot better than the sermon, you know. It's just wow, it's so fun to get to worship together with you. In fact, this morning, my name is Kelly, by the way, Kelly Shushak, and I'm the pastor here at Edges, and I'm so grateful. Just this morning, I was sitting in the foyer, and I had the opportunity to meet a new couple. They're actually not new. The woman has been coming, I think, for several years, 3. I don't see her in the room right now. I won't point her out. She's here, I think. Maybe she just comes for the monkey bread and then leaves. I bet she's here, though. I'm sure she's here. I just can't see her anywhere. Anyway, she's been coming for about 3 years. She said since she was a freshman, on and off, and her boyfriend was visiting today, and she said, I just have to tell you, I've never met you before, but I just love coming here. And I said, oh, really? Well, why do you love coming here? And she said, well, one big reason is the worship. I just love to be able to come and worship. I see some of you nodding, and I think that's so beautiful and something that people want to carry on through the week. So recently, some people had said things like this to us, and so we made an Edges Spotify playlist, and I just want to be sure that you know about it. In the event that you can't remember what we sang on Tuesday, you just remember that you liked it, but you can't get back to any of the words that would actually help you worship, this might be one way to do it. I think it'll appear on the screen. It's called Edges Worship. If you look it up on Spotify, and I heard somebody say, what's Spotify in the audience just now? I don't know, some way to get some music. I bet there's other ways you can get this, but I don't know what they are. That's a first step. How's that? So go find the music if you would like to have it during the week. And just as always, I'm so grateful for musicians who try to listen to God more than they try to perform. And I think that's what we experience together here as lead worshipers who are trying to figure out what does it mean to lead worship in a place. So I just want to take every opportunity I can to say thank you, and we're so grateful. Today, the question that hangs in the room is, who can you trust? That's the question we'll be asking together today. We're in the middle of a series called What Else is Good? We're closing down the Hold On to What is Good theme for the year, and so we're just thinking about what are the snippets that we still want to figure out how to hold on to. So today I'm going to suggest that trusting the right people is one way to hold on to what is good. That holding on to who is good will help you hold on to what is good, and that sometimes that might be counterintuitive. So I would like for you to think for a moment about who it is that you trust. And I think one good way to really get at that question is, who is it that you trust to tell you something that you didn't already think? Who is it that you can trust with some news or some information or some wisdom that wasn't already yours? In the first year that Frank and I were married, in a month I'll have been married for 28 years, and the first year that we were married, we fought constantly. And it was, as opposed to the next 27 in which we do not fight at all. But the first year was particularly combustible. And it was just because we realized we didn't agree on so many things. So my way of thinking about it was, it's fine that we don't agree. Let's just talk about it until we do. Which meant let's talk about it until you do. Until you agree with me. And so one day, no kidding, a lot of the way into the first year, instead of walking out, Frank said to me, you didn't marry you. You married me. Which I thought was just like the best wisdom, and I had to really figure that out. I had to really figure it out. So I'd like to ask you to think about, who do you trust? So I'd like to suggest that one question we could ask is, will I trust what I think? Another question we could ask is, will I trust what other people think? And a third question we could ask is, will I trust what Jesus thinks? And now I'd like for you to add on to those 3 questions in your mind. Will I trust what I think even if it's something I didn't already think? Will I let myself trust something new? Will I trust what other people think even if it's not what I already thought? And boy, how important is it who you trust, right? And will I trust what Jesus thinks, even if it's not what I already thought? So today I'd like for us to start with Scripture. I think it's a really good place to go for what Jesus thinks. Sometimes I think we like to think that we would just trust what Jesus thought if we just knew what it was, and I think that's a cop-out. I think we do know a lot of what Jesus thinks. We just don't want it because it's different than what we think sometimes. So today I'd like for us to look at a particular passage. The passage comes from Luke's story about Jesus. It's in the 9th chapter of Luke's Gospel, verses 1 through 5. Somebody's going to find that and then call out the page number for those of you who'd like to look at it from the Bibles on your table. See, now it's a race every week. Have y'all noticed? I think I have to keep my script covered because people come up here and look, I think, so they can just be ready with the page number. 595? Super, 595. We're not even going to read it yet, so you've got like a minute and a half to get it open if you want to look in a Bible. Sometimes it's just helpful to do that because then you have the surrounding parts if you want to access them when you get bored in the sermon. There are all kinds of ways to entertain yourself, and this is just one that I offer to you this morning. Anyway, 9 chapters in is where we're going to be today. And since we're starting in the middle of this story, we need a little bit of backstory in order to get going. So here's what's happened. Jesus' friends, who they call disciples, that's the churchy word for them, Jesus' friends, they've signed on for kind of this concert series with Jesus. They're following Jesus around. And they've been following him around, and Jesus' disciples, his friends, they've been totally wide-eyed because it's been a good concert. I mean, they've watched him cast out demons, literally like exorcise people who have been riddled with demons for their lives. They've watched Jesus bring dead people back to life. What a concert, right? They've watched Jesus make people well, even some who've been sick for a lot of years. For them, so far, this tour has been more of a backstage pass. And what they've witnessed Jesus doing for other people is making them believe more and more that Jesus really might be God. Like they can't figure out how it happens unless this one is God. But still, these friends have sort of watched from the audience in amazement but without commitment. They've kind of stood on the sidelines. Sometimes they're pretty sure about who Jesus is, and other times they're overwhelmed with how crazy it all seems, how much this may change everything. If they lived today, they'd be the kind of people who show up at church most weeks, who listen at least half the time, who occasionally are even moved to consider if Jesus might change their own lives. Not altogether unlike us. And they're learning the same things some of us have experienced, whether we have words for it or not, is that when you hang around Jesus, there's something that gets harder and harder to deny. There are these undeniable miracles that are happening around them. They keep looking around and they see people who have been touched by Jesus, and it seems so real, unordinary. It looks like Jesus really is changing everything for some people in some real life stories that they know. Maybe some of us in this room have also been in that place. I can look around the room and see many of you who have made me think, yep, when I look at him, I know Jesus is real. When I look at her, I know that story couldn't be possible except that Jesus helped. It's the place where part of you is certain that Jesus is absolutely real, and you can see how living up next to him will change everything. But there's this other part that knows it doesn't really make sense at all. Or at least not in the context of the ordinary life you're also trying to live. So I bet these friends are doing what you and I are sometimes doing. They're kind of dabbling in Jesus. They're trying to gain more evidence and more certainty and just more time in the room with him so that they can watch and listen while Jesus just does his thing, thinking they might feel better about a full commitment later on, about changing everything someday in the future. And then on this one particular day, Jesus has already gotten up to his eyeballs in at least 4 families, and they're all desperate. And these friends watch while Jesus brings those whole families toward new life and toward hope and toward belief. And then, just at the moment when Jesus should have gone home and collapsed on the couch, he calls for all of those friends to come here. And he tells them, all right, you have done enough watching now. You have done enough sitting on the sidelines. And that's where we pick up with chapter 9 on page 595. Jesus called the 12 together, and he gave them power and authority over all demons and to heal sicknesses. He sent them out to proclaim God's kingdom and to heal the sick. He told them, take nothing for the journey. No walking stick, no bag, no bread, no money, not even an extra shirt. Whatever house you enter, remain there until you leave that place. Wherever they don't welcome you wherever they don't welcome you, as you leave that city, shake the dust off your feet and witness against them. In an instant, Jesus tells his friends that he intends to sweep them up into the real action, to make them the conduits of all the power and all the authority that is God's, to trust them, to trust these ordinary people with his crazy mission of spreading God's healing and God's love and God's hope everywhere they go. If that had been you, if Jesus told you that he was giving you the power and the authority, if Jesus said he would give you everything you needed to help change the world in his name, if Jesus said he was going to involve you in bending the world toward wholeness, one supernatural encounter at a time, what do you think would be your next move? I think I would stall. I think I would be immediately consumed with my doubt about whether I could trust Jesus, and my insecurities about whether I could trust myself, and my worries about what other people would think, whether or not I could trust that. And so I think I would hesitate. I think I would be asking 3 questions that most of us are always asking. Will I trust Jesus? Will I trust myself? Will I trust what other people will think? And I think I might have my yeses and my nos in the wrong order. I think I would feel like I wasn't ready for this quite yet, like I wasn't expecting this to happen. And if Jesus said that he wanted me to participate, like to actively participate, like be all in, much less lead out in God's activity in the world, I think I would honestly feel like I don't know if I have time for that. No matter how important or unusual or exciting it seemed. I think I would be saying inside myself, isn't it a little better to just watch a little while longer, but not commit? So I think I would stall. But I wouldn't want Jesus to know that I was stalling. So I would tell him that I need to go pack. I need to go get ready. I need to get my stuff together. Well, now that's problematic because from the story it appears Jesus knows this. It looks clear to me that he anticipates the stalling. He knows his friends are not going to feel ready for a whole host of reasons, especially the question about trust. So he makes sure they're going to have to answer that question. He knows the task of joining Team God on earth is going to make people feel out of control, always. Which means that we, the people, will be tempted to overplan. Isn't that what you do when you feel out of control? We'll be tempted to overplan. We'll be tempted to spin our wheels pretending to get ready without ever actually going anywhere. Have you ever considered going someplace that Jesus asks you to go? Here are some practical examples. Go love your neighbor. That's a place Jesus asks us to go. Go participate in justice in the world. That's a place Jesus asks us to go. Go feed someone who is sick. Someone who had surgery last week. Someone who had a baby. Someone whose kid was in the hospital. Go just feed somebody who's sick. Go take care of somebody nobody cares about. Over and over, Jesus asks us, find somebody nobody cares about, because it's not true. It's not true nobody cares about them. Go show them. Go do it. I'm not talking about big, huge stuff like move to Morocco. I'm talking about just the stuff we know for sure Jesus asks us to do. Have you ever felt called to go forgive or to go be generous or to go try patience today? But you find yourself stalling because you just don't feel quite ready. You just don't quite feel like today is the day to forgive. I never feel like today is the day to forgive. Today I just don't have a lot of time to be generous. I'm sorry, I don't feel patient this morning. These are places Jesus asks us to go, but we find ourselves stalling because we're just not quite ready. And so while that question hangs in the air, Jesus says, take nothing for the journey. No walking stick, no bag, no bread, no money, not even an extra shirt. Which means none of them were 19-year-old boys. Because you need a lot of extra shirts on a hot and sweaty day if you're 19. What could be motivating him? What do you think could be motivating him? You look like you have some thoughts. Let's call that an out loud question this morning. What do you think? Now, this is out loud for everybody, so we don't have this long, just this long. What could be motivating him to say that? What do you think? His faith? Jesus' faith in what? What if Jesus has faith in them? Okay? What could be motivating Jesus to tell them, don't take anything? Why would he say that? Oh. It forces dependence, doesn't it? He wants them to remain dependent. Something none of us. Okay, there is an immediate need right now. What else you got? What? Oh, if you take a bunch of stuff with you, then it'll become your distraction. You'll have to focus on that stuff. Yeah. Excellent. Oh, he's saying, you don't need to take anything because I'm going to provide. You don't have to provide everything you need. Yeah, he plans to provide.
Showing the connection with another person is what more people need than money or food.
Yeah. It will require that they'll connect with another person also for what they need. And he's showing them how important that is.
Be raw and genuine.
Yeah, okay. It will force them to be raw and genuine, right? Yeah, not fake and together. Yeah.
Besides forcing them to be dependent
Yeah. Right. Right. It eradicates the illusion that we're in control, which can be a pretty hard lie to shake. One more or no?
It gives them a test to determine whether or not some communities are worthy.
A task to determine whether or not.
A test.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Go find out where you can meet me. See who will help you. Beth said it gives them a kind of a test to figure out what communities are worthy, what communities are already thinking like Jesus thinks. Yeah. Who will help you when you have nothing? Who will be generous to you for no reason at all? I hadn't thought of that one. It's great. In this seemingly tiny story, Jesus tells the friends that there is an amazing journey that is theirs for the taking. Only the catch is they can't take a walking stick to steady them or to help conserve energy. No bag with extra supplies in the event of an emergency or to provide the illusion that you're in control. No bread or no money so that they won't have to rely on anyone else, because he knows how important it is that they find out who it is that they can rely upon. Not even an extra shirt. Just a plan for today. They can't take any of the things that might make them feel prepared or safe or in control. What's Jesus doing? Why does he care if they tie an extra shirt around their waist or bring a pocket full of Cliff Bars? Why does Jesus invite these friends onto the playing field and then tell them they can't bring anything that will help them play? Well, it's for the reasons that you just suggested. It has to be. Jesus is developing something that goes beyond those things. Faith. Learning to believe that Jesus has faith in us, like was the first response. That dependence can be an altogether good thing. That there are immediate needs, that we don't need all the distractions. That God really will provide for us, that we need connections with each other, that raw and genuine will get you someplace. That being in control is always an illusion, a vapor. See, Jesus is forcing a question that they and we must feel in our bones, way down deep. Jesus is asking them to leave behind particular things, but those things have meaning. For us, they're metaphors. Jesus is asking them and us to leave behind sometimes everything that we think we need to be self-sufficient, everything that will guarantee we're still in control, to ditch anything that gets in the way or preoccupies us enough to cause us to miss the train that Jesus is on, that is leaving the station. Immediate need. Jesus is inviting his followers to put our full weight behind all that we've seen him do and to choose to believe what we've been seeing happen to our friends and in our families or the other folks who are gathered around us, some of them even in this room, enough. Jesus is asking us to believe that enough to trust his impossible request to come on, to jump in, to get on board with the mission that Jesus has in the world, whatever it looks like today, and to bring nothing as a backup plan, to take a risk. This isn't a question we answer one time. It's an everyday question. The question to trust Jesus and to take part in God's dreams for the world. This is a choice we must wrestle down every day. What's the adventure Jesus is inviting us to today? Every day, Jesus is already at work in the world, healing people's bodies and healing their relationships, bringing hope where there has been none, making people more whole, showing ordinary folks what real, extraordinary love will do if you fall into it. And all of us need these kinds of miracles. All of us need this God. And, crazy as it seems, Jesus wants us to be the conduits for it. Jesus said to those friends, it's on you now. These crazy, unbelievable, countercultural acts of God in our midst are going to come through you. But joining that adventure will mean leaving some things at home. It will mean going before we feel like we are ready. It will mean embracing a reliance not just on ourselves, but on God and on God's people, which means we got to get to know God and we got to get to know God's people. Because none of us is going to trust someone we don't know. And it will do it in ways that will make us uncomfortable. But Jesus, at least in this story, and in every other story that we read about Jesus and what Jesus thinks in the scriptures, Jesus seems determined that this is the only way. No walking sticks, no bags, no food or money, no extra shirts. Now, I don't know what may be your walking sticks, your bags, your money, your extra shirts. I don't know what those metaphors are for you, but I do think it would be good for us to think about them. Here are a couple questions for you to just think about silently for a minute or so. We don't do this very often, but today seems like a good day. Some folks in the room love to journal. This would be a good thing to journal about. If you don't want to sit and think and you want to write, just pick up some of those scrolls on your table and write some thoughts. Here are the questions. What holds you back? What keeps you from trusting Jesus? And is it the simple fact from the introduction today? Maybe I'm asking this because it's my reason. Is what mostly keeps me from trusting Jesus the fact that it seems like it's not what I think? It seems like Jesus thinks differently than I do. What do you think you need to take with you that Jesus might put on your list to leave behind? Maybe those would be good conversation starters for later with someone who you do trust. Maybe those would be good conversation starters for you with God as you walk on Tuesday morning or drive down the road to work. Now, earlier we stopped at verse 5. We didn't read verse 6. Verse 6 tells us how the disciples really did respond to Jesus, whether they stalled or not. Are you ready? Verse 6 says, they departed and went through the villages proclaiming the good news and healing people everywhere. Because they departed, because they went. They healed people everywhere. They were part of other people's healing. They left everything that seemed logical and they locked arms and they went together totally unprepared. They didn't stall. Amen.